Let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating cross-section of entrapment in Westeros, both political and physical. We're going to look at how three key figures in completely different locations find themselves totally cornered by duty, by fear, and, in one case, by sheer stone. And, as you'll see, their desperate attempts to break free are literally striking the sparks that are going to burn a kingdom to the ground. We'll be breaking this down into three parts today. First, Ghosts of the Past. Second, Shadows over the Veil. And third, the Skycell Gambit. Section 1, Ghosts of the Past. Ned Stark in King's Landing. Let's get into it. So, picture this. Ned Stark is lying unconscious with a shattered leg, and his fever dream drags him years into the past to the legendary Tower of Joy. It sets this incredibly chilling tone for the conflict we're watching unfold. In his delirium, he's riding with 6 of his most trusted friends, right? And they're about to face off against 3 legendary knights of the Kingsguard, including the Sword of the Morning himself, Sir Arthur Dayne. The whole dream is bathed in this blood-streaked sky, there's a literal storm of blue rose petals blowing around, and it all culminates in Dayne drawing his famous milk glass greatsword and saying, "And now it begins." Now, you really have to notice the contrast here. It's absolutely crucial. In the dream, Ned confidently replies, "No, now it ends." He desperately wanted the war, the violence, the whole tragedy to just stop right there in the Dornish Mountains. But then he wakes up to his present reality. Jaime Lannister just ambushed his men in the streets of the capital, and Ned has to tell his captain of the guard, "I fear this is only the beginning." It's like the ghosts of his past are directly mirroring the horrors of his present. And this just brilliantly illustrates the sheer brutality of that past. It's a stark reminder, pun intended, of the lethal costs of these royal conflicts. Just look at the math from Ned's memory. 10 men fought at the Tower of Joy. 8 of them died. Only Ned and Hallan Reed walked away to pull down the bloody stones. It's a sobering visualization of how completely devastating noble quarrels are to the actual men fighting them. Which brings us to a really harrowing parallel. Fast forward to the present day, and that street fight between the Stark and Lannister men, it also left exactly 8 men dead. That includes Ned's fiercely loyal captain, Jory Castle, and the Lannister guardsman, Traegar. It just goes to show you the tangible, immediate cost of this escalating feud. The blood is quite literally spilling onto the streets of King's Landing. So the real kicker here is King Robert. His absolute refusal to act, combined with his frankly violent domestic dysfunction, keeps Ned completely trapped in this toxic, deadly political environment. When Robert finally visits Ned's sickbed, he brings Queen Cersei, and it is a total disaster. Robert completely ignores the slaughter of Ned's men, he viciously strikes Cersei in the face when she mocks him, and then he essentially commands Ned to just forget the whole thing. He tosses the silver hand of the king badge right onto Ned's bed, flat out forbidding him from returning to Winterfell. Ned is physically broken, and now he's a political hostage. Moving on to Section 2, Shadows over the Veil, focusing on Catelyn Stark in the Eyrie. We join Catelyn watching this spectacular dawn breaking over the Veil, right? The world is turning from black to indigo to green, and below her, pale mists are rising off Alyssa's tears. Now, this is a powerful metaphor for Catelyn's own unwept dread. The myth says Alyssa Arryn saw her entire family slain, but never wept in life, so the gods decreed she wouldn't rest until her tears watered the valley. But she's been dead 6,000 years, and still, no drop of her ghost water has ever reached the valley floor. Catelyn can actually feel the faint touch of the spray on her face, and she wonders how large a waterfall her own tears will make when she dies. The dawn is so fair, but it feels incredibly cruel to her, because she knows just how foul this day promises to be. And we start to see exactly why it's going to be a foul day. Sir Roderick Castle brings her some highly alarming news. Jaime Lannister, the Kingslayer, is massing a host at Casterly Rock. In response, Catelyn's brother, Edmure, is rushing to guard the pass below the Golden Tooth, vowing to yield no foot of Tully land without first watering it with Lannister blood. But Catelyn is smart. She instantly realizes that if Edmure is making these commands, her father, Lord Hoster, must be very sick. She's worried sick herself. And as she walks through the cold white halls of the Eyrie, she runs into her uncle, Sir Brynden the Blackfish, Tully, who is absolutely storming out of her sister's apartments. So why is the Blackfish so furious? Well, it turns out Catelyn is completely strategically trapped. The shy girl she once knew in Lysa has grown into a woman who is proud, fearful, reckless, and above all, inconstant. Her moods change hourly. And right now, Lysa's paralyzing fear leaves Riverrun entirely isolated. She outright refuses to spare even a single sword from the Vale to help her own family. As the Blackfish tells Catelyn, Lysa declared the Vale cannot spare 1,000 swords, nor even one uncle. She just wants to keep the Knights of the Vale locked away safely in the mountains. The Blackfish is so disgusted by this cowardice that he resigns as Knight of the Gate right there and then, deciding he'll ride for Riverrun alone. Seeing all this, Catelyn realizes her sister's entire court is just a mummer's farce. The dwarf has played Lysa like a set of pipes, and Catelyn decides it's past time she takes her leave to get back to Winterfell. Finally, Section 3, The Sky Cell Gambit. Tyrion Lannister's fight for survival. Talk about being trapped. Stripped of his family's massive military power, Tyrion has to navigate this terrifying physical puzzle using the only weapon he has left, his cunning. The Sky Cell is a literal psychological nightmare. There's no outer wall. It's miserably cold, the wind screams night and day, and honestly, the worst part, the floor slopes slightly outward. Every single time Tyrion closes his eyes, he's terrified he's going to roll off the edge into that 600-foot blue abyss. It's a completely ingenious torture device designed to just drive prisoners mad until they hurl themselves into the void just to escape the anxiety. So how on earth does he get out? Well, Tyrion relies on masterful manipulation, turning his sheer physical weakness into a psychological advantage. First, he has to endure brutal beatings from his jailer, Mord. But with every strike of that leather strap, Tyrion uses it as an opportunity to whisper about Casterly Rock's endless gold. He is perfectly baiting Mord's greed. Eventually, he formalizes a fake desire to confess his crimes to Lady Lysa, tricking Mord into delivering the message. The whole goal is simply to secure an audience and get out of that freezing cell. And it works. Brought before the High Hall, draped in this shadowskin cloak with all the Lords of the Vale watching, Tyrion creates an absolute theatrical spectacle. Instead of confessing to treason, he loudly repents for lying with whores, cheating at dice, and wishing his family ill. It actually gets the court laughing. But when Catelyn presses him about the assassination attempt on her son Bran or the murder of Jon Arryn, Tyrion flatly denies all of it. He completely weaponizes this public setting, knowing full well that Lysa can't just murder a Lannister without a proper trial in front of all her bannermen. Naturally, Lysa is furious. She threatens to just toss him out the Eyrie's infamous moon door. Cornered by this threat, Tyrion rolls the dice on the laws of gods and men and formally demands a trial by combat. Now, Lysa chooses her seasoned captain of the guard, Sir Vardis Egen, as her champion, and she smugly refuses to wait for Jaime Lannister to arrive and fight for his brother. Things look incredibly grim. Tyrion asks the Hall if anyone will kill for him. The silence stretches on, and then, from the back of the room, the sellsword Bronn speaks up, volunteering to stand for the dwarf. It is a spectacular twist. And as we wrap up this explainer, we really have to ask ourselves, will this desperate gamble secure Tyrion's freedom? Or is it going to be the final spark that sets the entire realm ablaze? Think about it. We've seen Ned trapped by a king, Catelyn trapped by her sister's chaotic inaction, and Tyrion surviving a literal trap in the sky. All three of these situations are pulling the great houses closer and closer to a catastrophic war. Thank you so much for joining me for this deep dive into the source material. Make sure you keep this analysis in mind as you watch these events unfold.